I don't think there's anybody in NASCAR that enjoys the actual act of winning a race more than Clint Bowyer. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Time to talk NASCAR. I know I made an episode Sunday night after the race. I was kind of sad in the last episode. I was kind of depressed because of how some people finished. Wasn't feeling too great. But then I went back and watched all of Clint Bowyer's celebrations, saw him on social media all night and into the next morning. And I gotta say, Clint Bowyer just cheered me right up because if anyone loves winning, it's Clint Bowyer. So Clint Bowyer got the win. We're going to talk a lot about him. We're going to talk a lot about Truex Racing. Got to talk about Hendrick Motorsports and Chevy in general. Going to look at some of the most notable finishers from Sunday's Michigan race. And we're just going to talk about him here. Make some predictions. Talk about it a little bit. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. So let's jump right in. I'll start by talking about Clint Bowyer, or in a broader scope, Truex Racing, and just how dominant they've been this year. It's been well documented. Kevin Harvick's won 5 races already this year. He's been the best team consistently, the toughest team to beat. It takes a Truex car to beat a Truex car, it seems. But Clint Bowyer now definitely deserves some recognition. This is his second win of the season, and I know it was a rain-shortened race, of course. People like to maybe act like rain-shortened races don't mean as much, but Clint Bowyer was easily a top 3 car in Sunday's race, played just a little bit of pit strategy and got a good restart. He deserved the win. He earned it. He had one of the best cars. And this is now Bowyer's second win of the year. He won at Martinsville earlier this year, and I remember talking about after that Martinsville race, we'd seen how good Truex Racing was. I laid out the proposal that, hey, maybe Clint Bowyer, I know it's early, but maybe Clint Bowyer's an early Homestead favorite. At the time, I thought maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself by talking about Clint Bowyer being a championship favorite, but now it's looking like could be that coveted fourth driver that we were talking about a week ago. I remember a week ago after Martin Truex Jr. won Pocono, we felt like, okay, it's Harvick, Kyle Busch, Truex is probably in third place, but who's in fourth? We threw out the names of some Penske guys, maybe Kyle Larson or some Gibbs drivers, but we kind of looked over, I think, some of these Stewart-Haas Fords that share the same basic equipment that Harvick shares. And I think, honestly, especially now looking after Michigan, now that he has 2 wins and has another strong performance under his belt, Clint Bowyer is a very, very, very good pick to look at going into Homestead. I know we still have more than half the season to go. We still have almost half the regular season before we even get to the playoffs, and a lot can happen. We've seen how the knockout round playoff format can really shake things up. So it's early to sit here and definitively say, oh yeah, Clint Bowyer's making the championship 4. But at least as of now, I don't think you need to look too much further than Clint Bowyer. Keep in mind, guys, Clint Bowyer didn't even make the playoffs last year. And 2-3 years ago, he was driving for one of the worst single-car teams in the sport, running 30th every week at best. And now here he is. It goes to show you how important equipment is. We've seen how Matt Kenseth gets put in that 6 car. A guy who won a race last year has made the playoffs all but 1 year in his career. You put him in that 6 car and he's barely running 20th. So we see how important equipment can be, and there's no equipment stronger right now on a consistent basis than Stewart-Haas Racing. They finished 1-2-3 at Michigan this week. I haven't even talked about Kurt Busch yet, but Kurt Busch has been a quiet, consistent team this year. Doesn't have a win yet, but he's up there in points. He's one of the highest pointing drivers at the moment. Very consistent for the most part. Definitely probably a playoff lock at this point, but could he be a round of 8, round of 4 contender? Stewart-Haas Racing, we cannot count them out. I want to go ahead and look at the top 15 finishing results right there. And another team I just want to briefly mention is Penske Racing. Penske Racing only has 1 win this year, and it was Joey Logano at Talladega, but they've been super consistent, and all 3 of their cars are well inside the top 10 in points right now, and that includes Ryan Blaney. You see, again, all 3 of them with solid top 10 runs, and Paul Menard, a Wood Brothers affiliated car with them, got a top 5, played some strategy, had a strong car for the most part. He's been always good at those long, fast tracks we've known for Paul Menard. So Penske Racing, I think we have to keep them on our radar. I personally think Joey Logano is not getting enough credit for how well they've run this year. I know they only have the 1 win, but he's been so consistent. He's 3rd in points right now. If you actually just look at points, don't factor in wins or anything, he is 3rd in points, pretty close to Harvick, actually. I think it's Kyle Busch. Harvick's got a pretty long gap back to Harvick, and then Logano's right there with him. So Logano deserves a little bit of credit. He's been consistent. And much like Clint Bowyer, Joey Logano did not make the playoffs last year. So we could be looking at 2 drivers who missed out on the 16-driver playoff last season, making it to Homestead. It would not surprise me if at least one of them made it. You look just below the Penske drivers, and I have to talk a little bit about Hendrick Motorsports. And I alluded to this yesterday. It's part of why I was feeling kind of down after yesterday's race, because Hendrick Motorsports had been making such good strides. They had a strong Coke 600, then they had a solid Pocono, Jimmy Johnson in the top 5, you had the team looked good. All 4 cars looked like they could be playoff cars these last 2 weeks, so things were feeling good for Hendrick Motorsports. And I don't know how to describe it, but they came into Michigan and really were not very good. They weren't terrible. I mean, Chase Elliott, they got a top 10 finish. William Byron was running top 10 for a decent amount of the race. But at the end of the day, Jimmy Johnson was never better really than 20th, and that's where he finished. Alex Bowman just seems like week to week he's a 15th place car, and that's about all he can do. And I don't want to sit here and say I told you so, but there's been a lot of people commenting the last couple weeks talking about how they think Hendrick Motorsports really has it figured out. I'm not saying they won't get it figured out. I still think they've made a little bit of progress since 6 or 8 weeks ago. But people, I told you so. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. People acting like Hendrick Motorsports is ready to win every race all of a sudden. No, no, no. They had one good run at Charlotte and a decent run at Pocono. It wasn't enough for me to be convinced that they're back and ready to compete. They're not. And this race at Michigan, a standard 2-mile oval, a track that every manufacturer circles on the calendar as an important race because it's in the manufacturer's backyard, Hendrick didn't perform. And it's not like Chevy as a whole has a problem. I mean, you see McMurray has a top 10 right there. Kyle Larson looked like he was going to finish top 5 before he spun himself out. Obviously, the switch to Camaro is probably the #1 factor that's caused Hendrick to be a little slower this year. That is true, and that is a Chevy issue. But you just think that Hendrick Motorsports has as many, if not more, assets available to them than any other team in racing. Not just Chevy team, any other team in NASCAR. They are one of the biggest, most powerful. And the fact that they're getting outrun by Chip Ganassi Racing on a week-to-week basis should be at least a little bit concerning. Anyway, I'll move on from Hendrick. I don't want to keep beating that dead horse. The last thing I briefly want to mention is Martin Truex Jr. He's not on that little top 15 list I showed a minute ago. He finished 18th in this race. And it's not because he crashed, not because he had a tire issue or a major mechanical issue. No, he just ran 18th. Martin Truex Jr. And honestly, that was a bigger surprise to me than Jimmy Johnson running 30th at one point. Because Martin Truex Jr., not only did he just win at Pocono, which is a big flat track. I know it's not in shape-wise and stuff, it's not very similar to Michigan, but Pocono is still a big, fast, horsepower-oriented racetrack, and Martin Truex Jr. just won there. Not to mention, Martin Truex Jr. won at Auto Club earlier this year, which is kind of the sister track to Michigan. The 2 big flat track races we've had this year had been won by Truex, so for him to come into Michigan and just run mid-teens was shocking. And it makes me kind of feel like we all jumped the gun a little bit talking about last week how he should be one of the top 3 playoff drivers. He's not to the level Harvick and Kyle Busch is, and it's not as close as I think we thought. We were thinking last week that, like Harvick and Busch are right here pretty much neck and neck, and then just a little bit behind is Truex. I think Truex is a little further behind than maybe we originally thought. He does have 2 wins this year, and he's been competitive. He's been pretty consistent at a lot of racetracks, but you can't have races like he had at Michigan and expect to be considered a top championship contender. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, that is my show today. Thank you guys so much for watching. We have an off weekend this week before we go to Sonoma, so that's going to give me a lot of time to talk about a lot of things. A lot of people lately, the hot topic this season, especially the last few weeks, has been aero packages and restrictor plates. And I'm going to have an episode coming out either at the end of this week or over the weekend, sometime in the next few days. I'm going to have an episode where I talk about that and look at the Xfinity race at Michigan. They ran restrictor plates. There were some mixed results on that one. We obviously look back at the All-Star race when the Cup guys ran restrictor plates, and there was mixed results or mixed reactions to that as well. So I'm going to look at all that, give you kind of my opinion there. But I'm going to talk about that in a later episode. I wanted to save that for its own episode. Just today, spend the day talking about drivers and how they did at Michigan and what we need to look forward to. So thanks everyone for watching. Thank you to our awesome Out of the Groove sponsors on Patreon right there. You too can be a sponsor for just $5 a month. You can have your name right here and support the show, keep things rolling. I've been loving doing this show 2-3 days a week. I've been uploading a lot lately and it's been awesome. It's been really fun and I love to keep doing it and keep giving it as much time as I can possibly give it. But anyway, yeah, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, and yeah, thanks for watching everybody. You can check those links out in the description and I'll see you guys later this week with a new video. Got some good stuff cooking up, including a NASCAR parody, so be ready for that everybody. Thanks for watching, guys.